Then, hi everyone, thank you. Thank you, Steve, for getting the recording started. So we're here tonight at the August 24th Commonwealth Wind Open House, just going over some housekeeping rules. And then at the same time, for folks here in the room, we'll be taking questions during the Q&A afterwards. So a little bit about tonight. Tonight we are going to go through a brief agenda and review the project. And per the request of some of our community members, the last couple of months we've been spending our monthly open houses digging in a little deeper on some specific topics. So we've had a range of our experts and consultants and colleagues come join us here in Osterville. Tonight's topic that we'll be speaking on is horizontal directional drilling, or a process we refer to often as HDD, which is specific to the Commonwealth Wind project landing at the Dowses Beach parking lot here in Osterville. And then we'll have a couple more updates and then we'll get right into Q&A. All right, so folks here in the room and on Zoom, we have myself, Rachel Lake. I'm the Massachusetts Outreach Coordinator for the Commonwealth Wind Project. I'm joined by my colleague, Pat Johnson, who is our External Affairs Manager, one of our colleagues, Ken Fitzgerald, who is the Senior Principal at Stantec, who's one of the project consultants. Via Zoom, we have Ken Hickey, who is a Senior Consultant at Epsilon, which is another project consultant for Commonwealth Wind. And additionally, we have Steve Tedros on Zoom as well, who is one of our team members on the outreach team. And we have John Harker as well in the room, who is our lead fisheries liaison for the project as well. Thanks. Okay. So I just wanted to start by kind of getting a sense of how many folks, maybe over Zoom, you can raise your hand. How many folks here have been to a meeting before? Here before, I would imagine a lot of folks in the room. And then is there anyone here that this is their first time attending a meeting? Okay, great, awesome. So I'm just going to take a couple minutes and talk through an overview of AVANGRID's offshore wind projects. You've probably heard a lot about these different projects in the news and over the time that they've been around here on the Cape. So the map that you're looking at here shows an area that is about 20 miles south of Martha's Vineyard. That's about 40 miles south of Barnstable, where we are right now. So this area is in federal waters, and you're going to see a lot of shapes here on this map. So all those shapes are areas that have been designated by the federal government, specifically the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, for offshore wind projects. So our company, AVANGRID, has bid on and has these 3 lease areas here in the center that are 3 different colors that are projects we're currently involved with. So this green shape up here at the top is a project called Vineyard Wind 1, which folks may have been hearing about. AVANGRID is a 50% owner of that project. The other owner is an organization called Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners, and that project is currently under construction. It's an 800 megawatt project, and it will have about 62 turbines. Those are under construction right now. And is, the first major offshore wind project in the nation, the first kind of turbines to be getting installed here, which has been really exciting for us to see pop up. This next shape down below, this orange shape, is a lease area for the project called Park City Wind. So AVANGRID owns 100% of that project. That project is currently in permitting and development. So no construction yet, nothing like that. It's in permitting and development. And that project is about the same size. It's going to be an 800 megawatt project. And then this blue area down below is what we're going to be talking about tonight. So that is the lease area for the project Commonwealth Wind, which is a project that's 100% owned by AVANGRID and is also in permitting and development. So no construction has taken place yet. So this blue area shown here is where the turbines for that project will be. And then not shown on this map because it's way far south is a last project called Kitty Hawk Wind, which is going to be a 2,500 megawatt project. And that is off the coast of the Southeast United States. So that's kind of the space we're talking about right now. And those are the 3 projects in Massachusetts and state federal waters that AVANGRID has been working on. So to focus specifically in on Commonwealth Wind, so again, it's that last shape down there on the map, that last shape within that lease area. So this project, again, is a 1,200 megawatt project, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means kind of from an electricity standpoint. It's within that federal lease area we discussed. So again, that lease area was determined by the federal government, and our company AVANGRID bid into that. We are currently in permitting, so we're doing a lot of work on what this project might look like, going through environmental permitting and a lot of different levels at the federal, state, and local level. And we anticipate that federal permitting to wrap up in Q1 of next year in 2024. And our commercial expected operation date for this project is 2028. And again, so where the turbines will be, you can see in that shape is about 40 miles from Barnstable, where we are right now, and about 20 miles south of Martha's Vineyard. And where that electricity is going to connect into the grid, really plug into the ISO New England grid, which is where all the electricity from the 6 New England states flows into, is at the existing Eversource substation in West Barnstable. So that's where the electricity generated from these wind turbines will flow into. So a little bit more about what a 1,200 megawatt project means. This means that we're going to be generating enough electricity to power about 700,000 homes and businesses each year in Massachusetts. In addition to this project, we'll have the offset of carbon emissions of 2.3 million US tons per year, which is the equivalent of taking about 460,000 car emissions off the road. And additionally, we'll be creating thousands of jobs here in Massachusetts as well through the construction and long-term operation and maintenance of this project. And to really get super specific here about what this project means here in Barnstable, is there are a couple different pieces of this project. So there are the turbines, which are out in federal waters. So those are not in Barnstable waters or anything specific like that. When we get into kind of Barnstable is the installation of 3 cables that will cross about 23 miles of state water. So those cables will be carrying the electricity from those turbines to a landing. That landing will be at Dowses Beach. That's what we're going to discuss in further detail tonight. And then about 6.7 miles of underground utility infrastructure running from our landfall site to our substation, where we're gonna change how that power is directed into the substation. We're gonna be building a new substation off of north of Route 6 off of Oak Street, and then connecting that power to the existing Eversource substation, where we're gonna plug into the ISO New England grid. And lastly, these projects have, we've been meeting about these projects with the community for a long time, and we've been having a lot of conversations with residents, and we really just want to, commit here that we are hoping to leave this entire onshore route and the town of Barnstable better than we found it through our work here. And we want to be good partners with the town of Barnstable and specifically the village of Osterville, and part of this community for years to come. These projects are going to be around for a long time, and we're going to be here for a long time in the operation means those projects. Commonwealth Wind has committed to fund several village-specific benefits here in Osterville, and we're really hoping to work with residents of Osterville to work on specifically what those will be. And, we are looking specifically at the Viano Main Street area for the routes, underground utility infrastructure, which will carry that electricity from our landing site up to the substation. And understanding what that disruption will look like, we are, we'll be offering mitigation to fund those retail businesses in the village center to offset those losses from our construction. We understand that there will be disruption from this project's construction. And now we're going to dive into a little bit more of our specific topic for this evening, which is horizontal directional drilling. So I'm going to pass it off to Ken Fitzgerald from Stantec. And Ken, if you want, I'm happy to run the slides for you.
Oh, okay.
You can do a little walking.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Okay, that is a wire. Good evening, everybody. Good to be with you tonight. I represent Stantec Consulting. We're a big engineering company throughout the United States. We have about 5 or 6 offices here in Massachusetts and about 12 throughout New England. I represent a multidisciplinary team of engineers and scientists and PhDs and professional engineers who actually established the conceptual design for the Commonwealth Wind project. We're very early in the design process. We're roughly 20 to 25% complete. So in terms of design, we've got a long way to go. But we've established a pretty good and very solid conceptual design that we'll talk about specifically on the horizontal directional drilling. Next slide, please. As Rachel had indicated, there are 3 subsea cables that will come from the Bowen lease space. So approximately 40 miles from the south coast of Cape Cod. And this is it's rather small, but this is a cartoon of what that subsea cable looks like. It's about 11 inches in diameter, if you can see, sorry. And within it, this is alternating current. You might have heard of projects with direct current transmission. We're alternating current, actually on all 3 of these projects. And so we have each, with alternating current, we have a cable for each phase, as it's called. And so there's a copper cable for each phase, and that's what this is representing. So we have 3 of these that are landing at Dowses Beach. And here they are here. What's going on in the landing point is that we have what's called transition joint bays, which are shown as these rectangles here. The design is identical for all of them. And what goes on in that transition joint bay is we have our subsea cable, the three-core cable, as we call it, will end up being spliced into the upland cables. Now, what happens is the upland cables look like that. They're only a single core. So what we have is one cable coming in from the sea, and then we have three cables coming out to head up inland toward the new substation that Rachel had talked about. Each one of those onshore cables is roughly 3.5 or 4 inches in diameter. So the mechanics of an HDD, horizontal directional drilling, is basically the end product is the installation of a high density polyethylene casing. And this is a cross section of it here. And this is effectively a conduit for the subsea cable. So we have some very good renderings that we'll get into in a minute. We'll talk further. But the general process is we set up a drill rig at the Dowses Beach parking lot, and then we basically drill at an angle, go to the underneath the seafloor, and then we pop out about 2,000 feet from the coastline. And the drill itself is made with progressively larger drilling passes. It's like if you're trying to drill a big hole in a block of wood, you start with your pilot hole and you go to the next larger bit. It's a little simplistic analogy, but it kind of works the same way. So once the hole has been established, the bore, the tunnel, if you will, what ends up happening is the polyethylene pipe is actually floated in. It's actually fabricated someplace else and transported the site through the ocean. It's floated and will actually be pulled through the bore that has been made. And then later on, what happens is the cable will get pulled through that HDPE conduit. So here it is here. The diameter of the HDPE casing is about 32 inches outside diameter. It's big, it's about 3.5 inches thick. So weight per foot is pretty substantial, very beefy. So the cable gets pulled through it. So here's our cable again, about 11 inches in diameter roughly. And then when the construction is complete, it's backfilled with tremmy concrete for protection, further protection of the cable, for thermal properties, etc. So we do that 3 times. Some key attributes of the design and why it was selected is it's the least impactful. It's not an open cut by any means. Sometimes when a cable's being laid, like if it's on the streets, it'll be trenches dug, the cable gets placed in and backfilled. Not doing anything like that. We're doing all the work from the paved surfaces of the Cobbles Beach parking lot, and it's going to be sequenced over several years, and we'll talk about that in a second. After every sequence, the parking lot will be repaid by AVANGRID before we move on to the next step. So we'll talk about that more in a second. So the nice part is that it does not impact any of the sensitive, environmentally sensitive areas like the beach, the coastal dune, things of that nature. So
just really quickly,
Yeah.
you said Cobbles, Dowses for this.
that
one.
was, yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
I
no
wanted to
worries.
mention Cobbles. So this is the start about that. This technology has been around the world for a long time. It's been around for decades, and it comes in slightly different forms. Most recently and closest to home, this is what was done over at Cobbles Beach for the Vineyard Wind 1 project that Rachel had mentioned. A little bit different. There was only 2 HDDs. This plant, of course, has 3. The reason for that is each of the subsea cables carries about 400 megawatts. So 400 times 3 is the 1,200 megawatts of the Commonwealth Wind project. Okay. So this is a side view of the southern alignment, the lower one of what we had just looked at in the image. This is representative. The other ones are slightly different, but they're generally the same. From stem to stern, again, about 2,000 feet, 2,100 feet. We set up our drill rig in the Dowses Beach parking lot. We have an angle of attack, as it's called, of 15 degrees. The drill bit will basically carve this curved path. It's very deep. It's below the beach. It's about 50 feet. So this is really deep, and it's so beach area is very well protected, very stable. It'll run underneath the seafloor by about 40 feet, and then as we get closer to what's called the punch-out location, it angles up at about a 10-degree angle. So that's the configuration, and that's typical of all 3 of the alignments. Next slide, please. All right, so we talked about construction sequencing. So, of course, this work is going to be done in the off-season months, if you know, the exact schedule will be worked out with the town. So construction season number one, the two northernmost HDDs would be installed. Okay, so once those are no, not yet. Okay, once those are completed, AVANGRID, when the construction on the first two alignments is complete. Okay, AVANGRID and their contractors will repave the beach for use by the town when the weather is the best. Okay, so then at the end of that season, for construction season number two, the construction folks will come back and do that southern alignment, going furthest to the south, closest to the entryway. And again, it'll get the parking lot paved in the area where the work takes place. And then during season number three, the cable gets pulled. So the overall, the work at the beach is slated for 3 construction seasons, as we call it. Next slide, please. So this is pre-construction conditions, the way things exist now. Next slide. And this is a rendering of the first part of construction season number one. I forgot to mention one of the very important criteria that we had when we were laying this out. We were working to maximize access to the beach during construction. You know, we know everybody likes to use the beach during the winter time. I know I do. So we've been able to do that. We know the pier at the end is especially important. So what we've done during the first construction season, you can see the construction fence that's been set up. So nobody goes in there, but construction people, the public, of course, is prohibited. The entire southern portion of the Dowses Beach parking lot is completely open. Access to the beach is completely open. And to afford access to the pier, we've provided a 4-foot public walkway. As you can see here, this is a nice view. It's kind of looking that way. And you can see the construction fence. This is actually a sound barrier here. We've established a 4-foot corridor to allow the public to walk adjacent to the construction area and then access the pier. So just for clarity, you can see the various skids relating to the construction work. This is not permanent equipment. At the end, this is just construction gear. This goes away, everything is below ground. So these are the drill rig is at the very top, and then some of the supporting construction skids you can see in yellow and in green. Next slide, please. So this is the second half of construction season number one, where we have the central alignment being constructed, again, maintaining that 4-foot public access way. Next slide. So this is the interim condition. At this point, the northern and central alignments would have been completed, and the AVANGRID and the construction people would have repaved the parking lot. Next slide. So construction season number two, this is actually a little bit of a clearer view of the construction gear, the drill rig, etc. This is how it would be configured. Now, a little bit different. We were able to do a little bit of a better job here because we had a little bit more elbow room for public access. So instead of just that 4-foot walkway, we actually have a lane for cars to travel, a public car. So there'll basically be an avenue, a gate here for the construction people to do what they need to do with the physical construction work and deliveries and bringing in craft labor. But then there'll be an open corridor about 20 feet wide for the public folks to be able to access the northern portion of the parking lot and have a little bit better access to the pier. Safety is going to be paramount for all these scenarios. Even though we've established a driving lane, there'll be a keen alertness to safety. There'll be AVANGRID safety officers that will be directing traffic, controlling traffic, and protecting the public. Next slide, please. Interim season number two, again, work is completed, parking lot gets repaved. Next slide. And this is the cable pull. Now the cable pull will be done, there'll be 3 of them, 3 cables. That's all going to get done over the 3rd winter season. So although the HDD work is spread out over 2 seasons, this will all be done in one. And again, actually, why don't you just look at the slides here. There's the northern, the central, and then here's the southern. A little bit better view the pulling gear is different winches that will basically pull the cable through in a manner very similar to the way the polyethylene casing was pulled through the original tunnel. Next slide, please. So this is what it looks like when it's done. So that'll be a completely repaved, refinished, and repainted. And at the end of the day, when the work is complete, all that will appear of the infrastructure will be a manway, an access way. There'll be two per vault. The vaults are big; they're about 60 feet long, and at both ends of on either end rather of each joint bay, there'll be a manway. It's roughly about 3 feet by 3 feet. And if you've been to Coble's Beach, you can see the checker plate, and that's what those are. Again, over a finished parking lot. Next slide.
And to just be super explicit, what Ken is talking about is underground. So the only legacy of that work will be those manhole covers that you can currently see the example of.
There we are.
Thank you. Okay, so we're just gonna finish up here and then we'll get right into Q&A. So we have a couple of dates we just wanted to bring up for folks. So as I mentioned, this project is currently in permitting development. And so what that means is there are a whole host of agencies at the federal level. Think, you know, the EPA, all those different environmental organizations, you know, marine fisheries, all that kind of, and then at the state level, we also have additional layers of permitting across environmental and energy, and locally, we also have a whole series of permitting as well. So currently, this project is in its MEPA, which is the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act office, comment period for our DEIR, which is our draft environmental impact report. So we put together this report, it's 800 pages or so. And that is currently out for public comment and review by many different state and local agencies. So that comment period is open right now and will be closing on September 29th. So on our website at commonwealthwind.com/permitting, there is a whole host of information on how to access the different pieces of the DEIR. The different sections are all available there on our website, and more information on how to provide public comment either through snail mail by sending your comments through the mail system, or submitting your comment online, or submitting your comment via email to the MEPA office. So again, all those details are at commonwealthwind.com/permitting, and there's also some hard copies here at the Osterville Village Library as well. And then looking ahead, our next open house will be this coming October, on October 11th. So we'll be back here at the Osterville Village Library and via Zoom. And then again in December, here at the Osterville Village Library and via Zoom. And then lastly, this is the contact information for myself and Pat. We're always happy to meet with people one-on-one, happy to have Zoom calls or chat with folks over the phone if folks have questions. And additionally, here are our social media sites as well. And again, really just want to point folks to that website, commonwealthwind.com, where a lot of this material is as well. And with that, we're going to hop into Q&A. So again, I would just take this time for the folks on Zoom. If you have a question, you can either raise your hand, I can get a couple of hands pop up, or submit comments through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then Pat, I don't know if you maybe want to start in the room, and then I can pull up folks who have their hands
I'd like to
raised.
start, these folks got here early and
Yeah.
want to see the map, so can we just put that up before you stop screen sharing the new map on the website? I just want to go through the routes for folks that are considered for this project, the roadway choices in Osterville. So one moment, and we'll put that up and then stop sharing the screen. That's right there.
Yeah. Gotta move this guy.
I can't go, how do you be able, there you go.
Yeah.
There's a new, folks who are familiar with our website, there's a new commonwealthwind.com/map. So we created this map that shows the route options, starting at Dallas Beach, and maybe Rachel, if you can just kind of scroll from starting at the bottom and then going north. So I think folks, you had a question there. So there are two route options considered for this project. Both come out of the Dallas Beach, Causeway Road and East Bay Road. One takes a left going towards Wiano Ave. One proceeds essentially kind of north on East Bay Road towards Main Street, towards Fancy's Market. When we go back to the bottom, Rachel, let's start with the
Sorry,
yellow.
Pat, can I interrupt here on Zoom? We can't see what you're showing.
Oh, yeah, Rachel, I think you.
We are screen sharing.
Um, You want to stop share and start again?
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second, Steve. We'll try again.
Thank you.
There you go. Yeah. Thank you. How about now, Steve?
All good, thanks.
Okay, great. So let's start with the yellow route first. So this would take a left out of East Bay Road, north on Weano. Can't come right out in front of the library here on Weano Ave. Proceed on to Main Street, really through the heart of the Osterville Village Center. North on Main Street past the fire station, Amy Bakery, etc. Further north, bearing right on Osterville West Barnstable Road by Cape Cod Academy. Proceeding north for a while on Osterville West Barnstable Road. Cross 28 on Osterville West Barnstable Road. Further north until bear right in Old Falmouth, getting into the mills. And then up Old Falmouth, right on Old Stage, left on Oak Street. And then north on Oak Street to the substation for the project, which is depicted in pink, the left side of the screen. And then the existing Eversource substation is west of Oak Street in orange. So this is what we call the preferred route for the project. The main reason there's a major plus of this route and a major detriment. The major plus of this route is that the town is planning to sewer from Osterville West Barnstable Road down from 28 into Osterville Village Center. That's the main way they plan to sewer Osterville Village Center. So we choose that roadway option because it's already planned for major construction. And we hope to be able to partner with the town on sewer installation when we do this construction project. The major detriment would be the disruption to a very vibrant business center and village center that has a whole bunch of retail shops, several of which, many of which remain in operation in the winter months. So to compensate that, we would plan to offer business mitigation funding to the retail businesses for lost businesses based on an average of their prior years of revenue during those same weeks or months in the winter time. And hope that we choose that route if we could partner with the town on sewer. So that we're choosing a roadway that's already got planning to get opened and have a major construction project. So then let's go the alternative route, which is in blue. So this comes out of the Dows's lot and proceeds north on East Bay Road, crosses Main Street, north on Old Mill Road, Old Mill to Bumps River, up on a little north on Bumps River to Five Corners Road, crosses 28, I believe, actually on Lumbert Mill Road is where it was crossed 28. Further north on Lumbert Mill to Old Falmouth, and then essentially the same, Old Falmouth to Old Stage to Oak Street. So those are the two route options. This route, really no businesses. If Joe's Twin Villa were still in operation, we'd go by Joe's Twin Villa, but it's not. And so otherwise, not a lot of businesses, very residential area. Biggest detriment would be not planned for much of any sewer as we understand it from what we've seen of the town's sewering plans. So if we did this route, we'd probably be opening up the roadways just for our project, not alongside the town on sewering. So that's kind of the dynamics as we see it. If folks have feedback on that or additional input, I'd love to hear it. I'd say also, definitely a bit of a concern about for this route that section of East Bay, very narrow, drops off significantly at the boat piers into East Bay. So that'd probably be the other big concern is just a very narrow road, part of East Bay Road there for the alternative route. The other part of East Bay to Weano, a little more open for the road construction. So any questions on that, or is that relatively clear in terms of the roadway options?
Can we have a copy of your map?
You sure can.
Okay.
We'll print it and mail it to you if we get an address or email, whichever you prefer.
I have some questions.
Sure. Do you want to start? Yeah, go for it.
Yes, I am Mark Cornell. And I've lived in this Osterville for 24 years now. And I'm very interested in Dows's Beach. Because for one thing, I built the little free library down there. So I'm interested in this, but I'm also interested in saving our planet. And I think that wind energy will help Okay, so that's about how I stand with it, but I have some questions and, one, I would like to know where I did not see where the cable comes right in Dowses Beach. I didn't see that. I see a lot of construction there, but I didn't see where does the cable come in? I didn't see it. Okay,
We'll have Ken come up and answer that, and maybe we can try to zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, if we zoom in a little.
And point out.
I think probably the rendering, right? Or do you think the,
We see the parking
Map.
lot, but not.
Why don't we start with the first drawing? Please?
Oh, where'd the mic go? Where did I just put that? Oh, he's got the mic. Yeah.
That's a very good question. So the subsea cable, the big one.
no, you're good.
All right, so the subsea cable,
what is that over there? I don't see
What that is, I mean,
is here.
all of this area there. Where is Dowses Beach?
Okay, this is Dowses Beach.
It's right there.
This is Dowses Beach here. You drive in over here, and
Okay,
there's a boathouse, beach house located
Okay.
here. And then the pier is way up to the top of the page,
at the end,
at the very end. So when you drive in, as you can look out here, you can see the ocean. You drive up further, you're kind of behind the dune.
so the blue line is where it's coming in.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, there's three, there's blue, purple, and green. Those are the cables.
so there are three lines coming in.
Yes, sir.
Why three?
It's a 1,200 megawatt project, and with each of the subsea cables, you get about 400 megawatts. So AVANGRID has the intention of 1,200 megawatts. So to achieve 1,200, they need to have three landings in Route 3 of these cables.
Why can't you put them in the same area?
That's a very good question. They need to be spaced a certain distance apart to ensure that the cables will properly work and to ensure that the installation can be properly made. The closest they can get to each other is 65 feet, 30 meters, as the Europeans would say, it's 65 feet. So we originally tried to get everything all together in one location, but there just wasn't room to do it. If you look at Couples Beach, which is where Vineyard Wind was, yes, I mean Couples Beach. It was a very deep parking lot. There was a lot of room to maneuver. They only had two landings, but we had three here. Because it's difficult to see here, but the beach is fairly narrow in this area here. We couldn't fit them all together. So what we also looked at, if you could move up on the page, I want to look at the boathouse the other way, please.
You were looking at the parking lot, but the beach is over here.
Yeah, well, we want to do all of our work from the parking lot. We don't want to set a foot on the beach itself. That's the key.
You have to go under the beach.
We go under the beach, but we don't work from the beach and we don't have to put equipment on the beach. We do everything from the pavement. So,
So Ken, this is Ken Hickey talking. I just want to make sure that the gentleman understands that the cable, when it comes in from the ocean, will be 35 to 50 feet below the beach. So it will never be constructed actually on the beach. So that's the purpose of the horizontal directional drilling, is that we actually go under the beach. And so the answer to the question is there really isn't any construction in the beach or the dune, and the cables just come up in the parking lot.
next slide, please. This shows what Ken Hickey is talking about. This is a side view. This is looking sideways, okay? And try to get here. You could see this is the mud line, the bottom of the seafloor. And then we come up out of the seafloor, and this is actually Dowses Beach, this line here. So you can see that the path that the subsea cable will end up taking. This is showing our HDD, but it's the same center line. And the cable comes up and it basically comes out of the earth right in the middle of the parking lot.
But you have,
Oh, it comes up in the middle of the parking lot.
Yes, sir.
but you have to go under the beach to get there.
We do, but we don't have to open the beach up.
How
You know,
can you dig without?
you drill, you don't dig. That's a good question. You don't dig, you drill. Drill.
So you're drilling this way, not this
Yeah,
way.
you're familiar with it. I used to have a well where I lived and they took I don't know, a 4-inch bit and they drilled straight down.
That makes sense, but when you're coming this way,
Well, this is called a directional drill. So they take a similar drill rig. Instead of aiming it straight down,
got it,
they have it aimed at a 15-degree angle
got it.
and go down to the earth. And these are highly sophisticated. They're
Got
like laser guided, and so it'll come down and then it will ramp up and then pop out. of the sea as well.
Where, what? I still don't see where the cable comes up now, and then where does it go? Can you show that other map?
Do you have the route?
This one, where, can you show it on there where it's going to be?
Absolutely. So our joint bays, as we called it, we have one here, we have one there, and we have one here.
Okay, and show me where the cable is going to be run.
I will. So basically, we had those bays and there'll be a cable coming out of it. Actually 9 of them that look like that. It will run this way. And then,
Under the parking lot.
yes, sir, under the parking lot, in what's called an underground electrical duct bed.
Okay, okay, so all 3 of them will
They
all come together.
together and there's a.
They can come together then.
They can, yes, yes.
The
business, I can hear great.
He's hard of hearing, so we talk about
Okay, but anyway, we have, so yes, they'll merge together,
it.
they'll be grouped together with these smaller cables, which give us a lot more flexibility putting close by. And then they'll be basically routed along the causeway and then over to East Bay Road and the route that has.
Okay, I have one more question. Maybe you answered it, but I didn't understand. There's 2 routes. Is it that you prefer one to the other, but it hasn't been decided? Who is going to be deciding?
Yeah, so the decision on that, what we would plan is, it really is based on if the town wants to do sewer construction with our project at the same time, which we've done for the Vineyard Wind Route, Craigville Beach Road, Finney's Lane, McQuacket Lane. When we've been digging up the roads for Vineyard Wind, the town's been installing sewer under those same roads simultaneous, working together, one after another. We plan the same thing in Centerville, from Craigville Beach for the Park City Wind project, going up through Centerville Village, north up Shootline Hill Road, up to a substation for that project. We're gonna do sewer installation with the town for that one. The challenge for Osterville is in phase 2 of the town's sewering plan. So right now, a rough estimate would be Osterville Village Center, Main Street, portion possibly of Wayano Ave, I'm not sure, and Oster West Barnstable Road would probably get sewer sometime around 2035 to 2040. We would likely choose the route in yellow that goes through the heart of Osterville Village Center if the town wanted to do sewer installation simultaneously with us, probably sometime between 2025 to 2028, so about 10 years or so earlier than otherwise planned. So if the town tells us, yes, we'd like to do sewer installation with you, we'll likely choose that route. If they say, no, it's not feasible, we can't move up the sewering with you, we'd likely choose the route in blue. Because if we can't partner with the town in sewering, we'd rather go a route that has less impact to businesses and to main trafficked roads. So that would be the main decision point. It would be up to us to decide, but up to the permitting authorities to approve that. So that would be the Cape Cod Commission and the Energy Facilities Siting Board in particular. So right now, we're not at the table with the town in this project. We don't have a power contract any longer for this project. So and at some point in the future, when town manager Ells, your town manager, wants to meet with us and discuss this, and one of the main questions we'd have is the sewering component, we'd make a decision probably off of that. Other folks in the room?
Sure.
Other than size, is there a reason why you have to space them 55 feet? Is there a technical reason why you space them?
Does that?
Yes, sir. The criteria that we have, could you take us back to that first sketch? Sorry, showing all three. Great, thank you. So there's various criteria that we need to follow for the subsea cable approach to the beach. The first one,
You're good.
that's what it looks like at night. Okay.
It's all right. Just making sure everyone can see it.
Okay, so you see it better up here, that we need to space the cable at the landing point of about 20 meters, 65 feet. And that's for electrical performance reasons. And that was set by the AVANGRID subsea cable group in conjunction with cable suppliers. The other criteria, two other criteria that apply out at the water is the water depth. You need a certain depth. There'll be barges that are located at the punch-out location or just beyond the punch-out location when the HDD is being done to help guide the drilling process. So we need a certain water depth of between 10 and 20 feet for that. And then finally, the spacing out in the ocean. The requirement is to be somewhere between 50 and 100 meters, which is 165 feet, between 165 feet and 328 feet. So those are the criteria that we use when we laid this out.
Is there electromagnetic force that these cables are giving off, and how close can they be? And do they join together? Does that electromagnetic force increase? And how do you monitor these cables with the electromagnetic force that they're emitting?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll do my best because I'm not an expert in this area. We have experts who periodically come to these meetings. And if you want more information, I can send you a video of our meeting here back in February where this was discussed in depth. But the basics of this are any electric cable sheds off both electric field and magnetic field, particularly any of the above ground lines that are on all of our roads here, both shed off electric and magnetic field. When a cable, electric cable is buried, the ground essentially shields or absorbs those electric and magnetic fields for the most part. The only thing you get above ground from a cable, a buried electric line is some level of magnetic field. And so this, just like the Vineyard Wind 1 project and the Park City Wind project, this project has had a very thorough report and study using models for this by experts who do this. In our case, there's a company called Gradient that's prepared our electromagnetic field report. And it shows that for these, for anywhere in the Dowses Beach lot, over the causeway, over the roads, I think the largest magnetic field would be somewhere above the roadway. If you're standing right above it, somewhere in the range of, I believe, 85 to 100 milligauss, somewhere in that range. Much lower than the agreed upon international standard, which is 2,000 milligauss of continuous exposure to magnetic field that would have any concerns for human health. So it's much lower. That report, I believe, is either filed in our draft environmental impact report or in our energy facilities siting board petition with the state's energy facilities siting board. And this particular component of all of the research, the modeling for the magnetic field modeling in that report will be heavily scrutinized and looked at by the state's energy facility siting board, which is an agency of the Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities. And they'll have a very extensive review process as part for this project reviewing all that. But that's essentially the summary of it. Is the only thing above ground is that very minor magnetic field, no electric field.
How do you monitor the electromagnetic fields? Do you have any means to be able to follow those cables and see how they're working, and if you have a problem, how do you address it?
That's a great question. That's one I'd have to, I couldn't answer that for you. I don't know if there's any, for the Vineyard Wind project that's soon to be up and running, if there's any type of requirement of modeling that, or how the State's Energy Facility and Study Board or Department of Public Utilities, if they do any continuous monitoring of magnetic field measurements above roadways where there are electric lines beneath them. I'm not sure. I could look into that and get someone who knows more on that issue, a response to you if I could get your email address afterwards.
It's a Gauss meter.
Was it?
It's a Gauss meter.
Gauss meter, okay. Thank you, sir.
I think we had a couple hands raised online, I think.
Okay, we'll go to Zoom.
Yeah.
Hey, we have a couple of Q&As that I'll just read off.
Yeah, great, thanks.
The first one is from Captain Jim Kendall. Can you please provide the amount of area involved with each of these projects? I've had that question asked to me as a fisherman's rep for Vineyard Wind and AVANGRID. You've muted yourself, Pat. Sorry. There
So
you
I
go.
assume this is with the amount of acres in the ocean that the turbines will cover for this project, or I think John is looking that up. I know it's
On this chart.
many acres. I couldn't. Jim, I know John Parker, you know, well here is, we'll follow up with you by email maybe. I don't have the number of acres off the top of my head.
I'll follow up with you, Jim. Thanks.
Question, we'll do one more on Zoom, then go to you, sir.
Steve, are you able to read that second question there?
Yes. Second question from Janet Smith. If there is a failure of one of the cables under the beach after the system is operational, how would that be repaired? I understand you will be saying it is unlikely, but it is not impossible.
Sure, no, Janet, you're absolutely right about that. So that would be repaired. First of all, if there's ever any issue with any of the cables in the Dazzle Beach parking lot under one of the roadways, we have a continuous 24/7 monitoring system of all of this infrastructure that our company will oversee. So we'll have a system, it's called the SCADA system, and this is recommended by all the relevant experts if you're going to have electric cables of this kind that you needs to be continuously monitored. So if there was ever any issue, it would be mainly measured in terms of temperature or change in power loss dramatically, that would automatically trigger a shut off of the entire system. So that means the turbines immediately start shutting down and all the electric lines 40 miles under the seafloor into Barnstable up to West Barnstable, there'd be a shutdown. And depending on the type, either the whole system or of a specific zone or area where the issue is being reported. So if there was ever that type of issue, we know about it quickly, the power would be shut off. We dispatch a crew, they check it out. If it was an issue where a cable malfunctioned or then had some error with it, because we're gonna have these manhole cover systems every couple thousand feet,
About every half mile. right?
every half mile along the route, there'll be a manhole cover within the road. So if there's ever an issue with a specific part of the cable on Osterville West Barnstable Road, let's say, we could go to the relevant manhole cover, open that up, go down, pull out that section of cable, replace that section of cable, and then cover up the manhole cover. So we wouldn't have to dig up the roads every time there's an issue. That's why those manhole covers are helpful. As Janet said, it's very unlikely this would happen. You know, we're gonna buy brand new state-of-the-art cable. But if something like that happened, that's how the repair would be done. So it would be a simple, likely one lane closure on a road for anything like that. We'll have a periodic monitoring, I think every year or so. A crew will go out and take a visual inspection of the cable. So that would probably mean sometime in the winter months, you know, one lane closure with a Barnstable police officer flagger, doing quick checks of the, going through the manhole covers, just doing a visual inspection, make sure everything looks good. But that would be the only planned opening of those manhole covers and any kind of future traffic disruption. Sir?
When you put the cable horizontal drilling in, are you gonna do a casing first? Is there gonna be a casing before the cable goes in?
Yes, sir. Yes, the idea is we would directionally drill a tunnel.
Yeah.
Through the earth from the parking lot. And then once we achieve the proper diameter, we will do exactly that. We will pull through that bore, a 30-inch outside diameter, 3.5-inch thick, high-density polyethylene casing. That'll get pulled up, it gets floated in from someplace else, pulled through the hole from the beach parking lot, and it will be through that casing that the subsea cable will be installed. And then in the annular area, it'll be backfilled with trim concrete.
Now, will the drilling start on the shore side or out on the water side?
All the drilling will be from the shore side, from the parking lot area itself. The technology exists where you can make it from the sea. You can do a marine type bore. But in terms of minimizing impact, we've opted to do all the work from the beach, not the beach parking lot, excuse me.
It's a lot cheaper too.
Probably, sure it is, yeah. You work on the sea is difficult.
The issue comes, when you do horizontal drilling, you're using the same technology as they do, the oil rigs for oil drilling.
I'm not familiar with those, I'm sorry, but go ahead.
I mean, they do horizontal drilling for oil.
Okay,
They go down several thousand feet and then they go over horizontally. Okay, and they use a material that is caustic and is not very friendly at all. And they break up the shale up below the surface in order to get at oil. So what kind of materials do you use for your drilling?
great question. So it's mostly water, but we also, the way it works is that as the drill is being made, we use a slurry, which is going to be the mechanism of keeping the drill bit cool and transporting away the cuttings. Within that slurry, there's a substance called bentonite. It's a naturally occurring, it's like a clay. And that's what we utilize within the HDD process. It's a very small percentage. I think it's like 5% or less. And what it does is, besides fulfilling those functions of cooling the bit, transporting the materials, it also helps seal the hole as the drill is being made.
Yeah, mainly for drilling, for cooling the drilling bit, but the issue comes with any of that stuff carcinogenic.
No, sir. No,
Because the stuff that they use for oil well drilling is very carcinogenic
right. No,
for horizontal drilling.
yeah, no,
Now, is this cable that's coming in, is that going to be a DC cable or an AC cable?
it's a solid AC cable. There are no fluids in the cable.
So is it 3-phase?
It is.
Okay, and how is that brought out on the ocean side? Is that brought onto a rig that's eventually on 20 miles offshore?
They'll be rigs. In fact, off of Covels, when was it, last winter, I think it was? They're on reels, very large reels that are on barges, and they're basically pulled that way.
Yeah, there's eventually going to be a rig out there that's gonna hold those 3 cables.
Yes.
The windmills, each of the windmills is going to feed power to that cable and then come in.
Yeah, the way it works is that each of the turbines is rated for, I believe it's going to be somewhere around 13 or 14 megawatts. So if you take 1,200 divided by 14, that's the number of turbines that we're going to have. And what ends up happening is they call them array cables, where there'll be individual cables that come out of each of the turbines,
Yeah.
and they get collected in offshore substations.
Yeah.
And those are mounted on piles way out in that Bowen lease space. So all the energy, all the cables from each of the individual turbines get collected in the offshore substations. And what comes out of the substations are the 3 cables that we saw in the drawing.
Combining the power for the different windmills. Okay, it has to be done usually with a transformer.
Yes.
And you step up that voltage to several thousand volts.
Right.
And bring it ashore. So that's a high voltage cable that's coming in.
Right.
Probably in 100,000 to 200,000 volt kind of range.
275. These are excellent question. These are 275 kV, 275,000 volts each cable.
Now, the transformers that are out offshore are usually oil filled. And they're cooled that way. They run around 95% efficiency, but when you're dealing with megawatts, there's a lot of heat that's still there. The platform that those are based on as to how high off the water and how sturdy is that platform? Because that rig goes down, that's different than a windmill going down in a hurricane. Windmill goes down, it's not a problem. Okay, but if that rig goes down with those transformers, with that oil, you got a problem.
Right. I can answer all those questions on the onshore substation, but Pat, maybe. you can
Yeah, I
address
think,
those.
sir, we'd need to get, if I could get your contact information, I'd happy to ask our experts. We don't have anybody who does this is more of the folks who do the work here in Barnstable on the land, who are here tonight, but if I could ask and get some details on that for you. For the substation in Barnstable, we do plan to have, there'll be dielectric fluid, which is a form of refined mineral.
That's well defined.
Yeah.
It's the offshore stuff that I'm worried about.
I will get some answers on what's contained in
I've
terms of
asked that
fluid.
question before to you folks, and I haven't gotten it.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. If I get your information, I will find out. Who else? Sir, or sir, and then Suzanne, and then you, ma'am, and then we'll go to Zoom. Sir?
You have the mic.
Yeah, I don't know how far to stretch. You want to come up here? That might be better.
So I'm basically in favor of wind power, but I'm still perplexed about the route making sense across such a sensitive beach ecosystem and then up through the middle of Osterville, which has some of the most expensive real estate on the Cape. And for you, creates a huge amount of disruption in the community and for the residents as well, of course. Were there no other routes considered that could have avoided some of that disruption? And secondly, if you have an approved and agreed route through Centerville, could you not have taken more of your access up through Centerville since that's already been agreed to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, the first driver of this project, for any of these projects, is where you can connect the power in the electric grid. And do you mind, sir, do you mind just taking your conversation in the room there? I think folks can't hear it. Thank you so much. So the first, the real driver of this is the substation that our company has the right to connect power into. So for this project, we have two locations in Massachusetts. About 1,200 megawatts at the West Barnstable substation on Oak Street. And then we have 400 megawatts at a substation in Acushnet, Mass, just east of New Bedford. So those are only two options we have in Massachusetts. Always looking for, looking for others if there's other opportunities, but it's a very competitive space. Other places like Brayton Point and Somerset, or other locations that could be candidates for this type of landing. Other wind companies, our competitors, have taken those places. So our main focus has been either on West Barnstable or Acushnet. Since we have enough capacity in West Barnstable, we don't see a justification where we would also send one of the three cables to Acushnet, which would be a whole new permitting process to go that way. So we've been really focused on landing the three cables and connecting West Barnstable. So I've been here with AVANGRID for over a year and a half now. When I started in January of 2022, the question you asked was the first thing that landed on my plate, or my first meetings were, could we land the three cables for Commonwealth Wind in Craigville Beach? And the answer is yes. Craigville Beach is a massive parking lot. Park City Wind's going to land in the far west over by Long Beach Road, in that area of that parking lot. Plenty of parking lot area left on that sort of side of the bathhouse at Craigville Beach, or on the other side. So plenty of beach parking lot. The problem was the options for egress roadways out of that area of the Craigville Beach area. Vineyard Wind is landing at Cogles Beach and then going towards Hyannis on Craigville Beach Road, and then ends up in Independence Park in Hyannis. Park City Wind is going up Craigville Beach Road, crossing under the Centerville River from Short Beach Road, and then proceeding north up through Main Street in Centerville and Old Stage Road, Shoe Flying Hill Road, right through the heart of Centerville Village. We looked at our engineers, we ordered an outside engineering firm to look at this as well. Is there any way we could take those additional Commonwealth Wind cables and also cross them under the Centerville River? Is there any other way we could get north from the Eunice Kennedy Shriver parking lot across from Craigville Beach? Is there any other way we could go up Long Beach and then cross under Long Beach somewhere and go north? Looked at it all. Couldn't find a viable way to land at Craigville Beach. And that was really the first option we considered for Commonwealth Wind. We looked at a number of other options, probably two of the most seriously. Dowses Beach parking lot and Loop Beach parking lot in Katuitt. Loop Beach problem is there's sort of two tiers of that parking lot, right up against a bunch of homes, not big enough. And then the water depths in all of Katuitt Bay, not sufficient. with other locations up in, West Bay, North Bay, in that area of Osterville. We're really focused on a Barnstable landing, given we're trying to go to West Barnstable. So after all the analysis, the best option for this project was Dowsey Beach parking lot. And in terms of the route node choices, you're right, in an ideal world, we don't want to go by businesses in a Thrive Village Center. The justification for that again would be if there's already going to be a very large construction project of installing sewer, why not us be part of that and help finance and help contribute funding to that sewering project that's otherwise being borne by taxpayers? That would be the justification for doing it. But we haven't made that route choice. We have an option going up Old Mill Road that would avoid the village center and the businesses, an option that would go through it if we'd be doing sewering alongside the town.
Is the sewer proposal well established already? Is that?
It's definitely, I mean, I don't want to speak for the town. I would say it seems, based on recent action from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection and the existing lawsuit settlements that the Cape has with the Conservation Law Foundation, as just an individual, I would say it seems like it's going to happen. The town seems very committed to its 30-year comprehensive wastewater management plan. But, Councilor Cusack is here, other town officials, including Town Manager Elzer, your DPW department, would be better able to tell you how sure a thing that is, what the likelihood the town would want to partner with us on the timeline. Not sure, I wouldn't want to speak from the town. So Suzanne, and then ma'am, you in the right sweater. You want to use the mic, Suzanne, or are you good?
No, good. My apologies to those of you in the audience who favor this project. My name is Suzanne Connolly. I'm the chair of State Grid in Dowsey Beach, and my very, very large following and our steering committee are fighting this landing. We don't think it's appropriate to use this location to put electrical infrastructure of this magnitude at Dowsey Beach. So that's just by way of introduction. I just want to respond to something you said, which is the only legacy will be manhole covers. These giant vaults under the parking lot will contain massive electrical infrastructure, and they will need servicing, and there will be trucks servicing them all the time. That Dowsey Beach will really no longer be the same once this thing goes in here. We have great concerns about the causeway and the ditching of the causeway. That wasn't even talked about tonight, but they're planning to make a very deep ditch in the causeway. We really worry about the safety of the causeway. But my question is this, and Ken, I appreciate everything you do in trying to explain things, but those graphics were so antiseptic almost. It's like so clean. I went and watched what happened at Coble's. It's filthy, it's noisy. I couldn't park my car in a handicap spot because all the construction vehicles were there. It's just a muddy, destructive mess. The idea that there's a 4-foot walkway that you're going to put in place for mobility impaired people to access the accessible fishing pier, as long as you've made it, is ridiculous. If you're mobility impaired, you are not going to be able to get out to that fishing pier, which is a very, very important access to the waterfront by people who are mobility impaired. Just want to say that, that's just not a suitable or even, I don't know, acceptable idea in my mind. I want to ask 2 questions. The first one's a little more difficult, but it's a follow-up to your Hyannis meeting.
Yeah.
I asked you, and you said that, I'm sorry, let me back up. In your federal filing, you told the feds in your construction and operations plan that you were going to use the South Coast variant as a noted alternative to Dowsey Beach. And when I mentioned, you didn't mention it, and I said, Patrick, there's the South Coast variant option as well. And you said, we're not looking at that anymore. And my question to you, and if you'll recall, was, have you told the federal government that your noted alternative is no longer being considered? So I'm sure you followed up because you always follow up. And I have a second question after that answer.
Sure, thanks, Suzanne. I followed up with our federal team. I believe there's going to be a supplement filed to our COP that will include that. I will get the exact language on that and email that to you from our federal.
So you're no longer considering the South Coast variant, and that's official.
That's Well, I would say it's not official until we file that with BOEM, but from my understanding that we are no longer considering that. And I'll get that in writing and how that's gonna be communicated to BOEM.
All right. Are there going to be concrete mattresses placed on the ocean floor outside of Delson's Beach to hold these cables down like you had to do with Kogel's?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the use of,
Thanks.
yeah, thank you so much, Suzanne. So the use of concrete mattresses would be, so for the seafloor route, out from Dowson's Beach and then out 40 miles south to Martha's Vineyard, we've done an extensive mapping of that whole seafloor, of the conditions. Most of the Nantucket Sound is very sandy bottom, most of the seafloor bottom in Nantucket Sound and into Centerville Harbor, into Dowson's Beach. And for most of that route, there are locations where you have hard bottom or rocky bottom, the seafloor, where, and Vineyard Wind has just gone through this, where our cable installers will attempt to to install the cable below the seafloor in locations where they can't, where there's that hard bottom. They will put large concrete mattresses like we described, which are certainly essentially large concrete structures tied together with some type of rope that are placed on top of the cable to protect it. So that if there's any, especially John Harker, our fisheries outreach person is here. If there's ever a bottom dragging net, mobile gear, fishermen, commercial fishermen who's out in that area, that they won't hit the cable and unearth it if it's just sitting on top of the seafloor. That's why you need either large bags of rock, we're called Dabian rock bags, or a concrete mattress put on the cable to protect it. It's very limited for these projects anticipated where we'll need to do that, but subject to all the approvals from the federal and state government in respect to federal and state waters. I would assume that would be what we would do. That's what's being done for Vineyard Wind, and it has been done for Vineyard Wind as a way to protect that cable in the certain locations that have a rocky hard bottom.
Will you attach plastic fronds to them?
Don't know about plastic fronds. I don't know if, John, do you know anything about that, or could you?
That's in
Get
your
those.
E&F.
Plastic fronds.
Not too sure. Good question. And again, these are all determined, the barrel depths, and what happens with the cable at that point is all through a cable barrel risk assessment. And it also gets determined when there's geotechnical work that's done to determine those different bottom types. So the plastic fronts, I'm not too sure about that, but I know that the mattressing, it's an alternative, it's a mitigating tool that we can use. It's also used sometimes if a cable's gonna be crossing over another one, which we don't foresee in the future. With Vineyard, I can't speak specifically as to why they were using them closer to Dowson's Beach, but I can assume that was probably for, waiting for interconnectedness. You probably saw a vessel out there kind of sitting there, which is a safety vessel. That's
That's why the
why.
vessel that was installing the concrete mattresses.
Yes, there was another one that was closer to shore that was brought up at our last meeting, I believe, here as well. That was basically a safety vessel because they hadn't connected the cable yet, so they wanted to keep people away from there and they actually used a mattress at that point as well.
Ken Hickey, do you know anything about plastic fronds for concrete mattresses, or could you ask Holly so we can get back to Suzanne about that?
Yeah, I do not know, but I will inquire. Yeah, and follow up with you. Yeah.
Okay, I'll
That's
get
in
back.
your E&F.
Yeah. I'll get you response on that and the details of how we're communicating the status of South Coast variant to BOEM. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
You, ma'am, and then I'm gonna take a few folks from Zoom, I think.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
So are you saying that the underwater cable does emit magnetic, electromagnetic radiation?
It emits a magnetic field, not an electromagnetic field, not an electric field, a magnetic field,
Just magnetic?
just a magnetic
Do we
field.
know the effect of that on the marine animal life?
That's been, I don't know, John, if you know
Yeah, there's
studies.
There's definitely studies out looking at different species, like lobster, things that are gonna be more in that thick area. And you have to consider the levels. I don't have the exact level numbers with us now, but again, going back to that comment that I made before about the cable barrel risk assessment, the targeted cable barrel depth is around 1.5 to 3.5 meters. So you're looking at about 5.8 feet, but we determine that underneath the stable seabed. So if we have a shifting like Nantucket Sound, there's a lot of current there. That may be even deeper. So the deeper it goes and how it's insulated, as we talked about before, with that outer casing of, the 11-inch cable that has what's the outside of that casing? It's like polyethylene. along with the subsurface material being like sand or potentially clay, you're gonna have an insulation that's gonna limit any of that EMF. But there are different studies out there that you can look at, but nothing's pointing in any direction of a direct effect against fish or migratory species that are in that benthic area.
Might take a few from Zoom and then I'll go for you, start. Steve, I think we have a couple hands raised or Q&As. Go ahead.
We have some hands raised. I think Rachel will need to unmute from your end.
Okay, let me look at the participants list. So I see a couple hands raised. All right, so we'll go to Bebe Brock. And you just need to, you're now live, Bebe Brock. If you just want to unmute yourself, you can ask your question. And if you just raised your hand earlier to say this is your first meeting, you can let us know that too. But you can go for it if you'd like to speak. I want to ask you to see if you see that, to unmute yourself if you'd like to say anything. Okay, I'm gonna put you back, but just maybe put something in the chat if you would like to say anything. Okay, I'm gonna go to, there was another person hand raised, Brad B. Okay, Brad, you should now be able to unmute yourself and please make any comments or questions you'd like.
Yeah, thank you. I had a question. Your presentation suggested there's some infrastructure underneath the parking lot that's accessed by manholes, except manhole covers, etc. I just wonder what happens to that infrastructure if the parking lot ends up being flooded due to, say, storm surge, or even in the longer term due to sea level rise?
That's a great question, Brad, and covered in our draft environmental impact report. So Ken Hickey, start with you, and then Ken Fitzgerald, maybe to talk on the electrical end.
Yeah, good question. Thank you. So in coordination with the state of Massachusetts, we conducted coastal resiliency analyses. So analyses of future sea level rise, increased storm impacts to Dowson's Beach, and predicted erosion under very extreme worst case conditions in the future. And then those results were passed over to the engineers at Stantec, and they built the system to be resilient as possible to future storm events. And I'll let Ken address that, but there's a process that's been implemented by the state of Massachusetts to ensure resiliency in the coast, and we followed those protocols and guidelines. So yeah, with that, I pass it over to Ken.
Okay, sure. You want to talk about the?
But can I just follow? Well, go ahead.
Please go for it, Brad. Yep.
Well, I'm just curious. Well, I guess there's details on in your report, but you need to consider both the sum of sea level rise plus a storm surge. I'm just curious if that infrastructure floods, if it goes underwater, is that a problem?
Yeah, it's built to be flooded and go underwater, and you're exactly right. We simulated 2030, 2050, and 2070 high-end predictions of sea level rise, and then added to that extreme storm events such as 100-year and 200-year storm events. So that combination of more severe storms and already having a sea level rise was simulated in these models.
But what elevation is the parking lot? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, I don't. I know the sea level rise predictions. I'm sorry, I don't have that yet.
If I may, what we considered in the design, and
Just turn that on.
Good. That's better. Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the modeling that you described predicted, I believe, a 15-foot storm surge at the Dowson's parking lot.
That's correct. So yeah, the entire parking lot was submerged under the.
Yeah, so Ken was right. The cables are designed for underwater service. So the cables don't care, the cable splices don't care if they're under 15, 20 feet of water. They are designed to operate successfully underwater. And then the infrastructure design considered the results of that storm modeling by way of setting elevations of components and designing the components to withstand the storm forces that would be resulting.
I imagine the sea level, I imagine I heard someone say 3 feet, Dowson's Beach is essentially at sea level, right? Maybe a few feet above in the parking lot.
Right. So the design is robust. It could withstand these modeled conditions. And Ken, I think you said at the beginning that the chances, these are very unlikely events, but we are designed for it.
Anything else, Brad?
Nope, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Sir, over there, you wanna, feel free to come up, use the mic, or just go for it if not.
I can probably just go for it. My name is Tom Weinman and, up the hill and on the other side of the village. I wanted to have you give a comparison if you have it. Well, first of all, let's go back to the recent question about the mats, that were described as concrete mats that was used at the other location. And you described it as not needing that on your landing. And you described that those are used where you're commonly, and that may have been temporary over there at Coville's, the concrete mats over at Coville's. Okay, but you're doing a different method which doesn't need those theoretically, is that right?
No, it's similar. I'm not sure, Suzanne, you seem to be saying that there's an area off Coville's Beach where they did the Vineyard Wind did the cable installation where nearer to Coville's Beach, they actually installed some concrete mattresses on top.
Yeah, they had to because they couldn't bury the cables.
And I wonder if that was the location where the HDD punch out was at the C4. I don't know if they put concrete mattresses over that location or I'm not sure. I could look into that, but we're planning to, and this is completely subject to state and federal permitting that would have particularly, I think the Coastal Office, Coastal Zone Management, Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, and federal agencies. We would plan to do a similar method as Vineyard Wind, is at locations where we can't bury the cable because of rocky bottom or some obstruction, we would put a bag of rocks or a concrete mattress on top.
Right, but the question sort of was, is it gonna be anything like Coville's Beach? You're saying the plan is it doesn't need to be.
But
I'm not saying
let's be clear, we don't want to use any mattresses if possible.
Exactly, and what I was trying to clarify was, I mean, you should know as a presenter.
Yeah.
What the survey, if the survey says that it's, soft material going out there, that you're gonna have not concrete mattresses anywhere near this beach, right?
Yes,
And the survey, at least going out significant, like maybe to Muskegon Channel or something like that, where you might run into hard stuff.
Mhm.
And you have to do those kind of methodologies. But anywhere near, let's say, a half a mile or more, because I'm sure everyone in this room is more concerned about what's really happening near the land.
Yeah.
And so your plan is to not have something like what was going on at Coville Beach, whether it was permanent or not. It might be good for you guys to, bring that to light and know the fact. So that
Understood.
you can refute what it maybe was a temporary thing because of how they were laying out the infrastructure.
Yeah.
I think we were just kind of talking and I was still listening and I apologize, but we were talking when the HDD process starts, it's underneath it. It's not gonna come back up and get mattress and go back down. So you're still looking at a half a mile off the beach, that there's not gonna be any impact. There's not gonna be any.
So it's going a half mile out even before you do that.
Correct. So the potential for mattressing starts at, correct me if I'm wrong, a half a mile out.
Right.
And again, we do geophysical and geotechnical surveys to determine that. We've done those. We'll do them again. We'll do right beforehand. But you can't eliminate 100%. You can't be 100% of what's going to happen once the cable's actually going into the barrel. That's where option B is, that mattressing.
Exactly. And so I think a lot of the concern about what was going on at Coville Beach does not translate to this, the way your plan is, until you get a half a mile out. And even then, you should have a survey that's in that area that says it's super unlikely that there would be any issue for 3 miles out or whatever you could say.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that would be a proper thing to bring to the group, right?
Well, I feel more comfortable after verifying with the Marine Affairs people at Vineyard Wind and their fishery liaison on exactly what happened when they did do that. I can speculate. I know I've heard what they were doing.
No one wants speculation,
But I hear you
but
now.
it's an experience and everyone's aware of it. Some people are concerned about it, right?
Well, may I say why I'm
Sure.
concerned? Because you have mapped and you have done the surveys. There is complex habitat directly off of Dowses Beach.
Mhm.
And we're not sure how far out that complex habitat goes. Complex habitat is where many taxa breed, make their homes, reproduce, etc. And that's one of the main reasons our group is so concerned. So when I ask about concrete mattresses, that's what underlies my question.
Right, so these guys' assurance of the probability,
They haven't
Beyond
shared
that.
anything.
I-
They've just done a basic.
okay, I'm just pointing that out.
I want to make clear, if I misspoke, I apologize. We're not proposing to use a different technology than Vineyard Wind did at Coble's Beach. They were also several thousand feet off the beach doing drilling, horizontal directional drilling under Coble's Beach. We're proposing the same technology. I can't tell you sitting today, I don't have the map of all of the mapped complex seafloor bottom and hard bottom. We have a map. If I can get your email address, I'll send you the map for the whole route and show you what it says off the Dowses Beach. I think, as John said, he'll ask Janelle and Krista from Vineyard Wind, who know more about this than us, get you a response, Suzanne, and we're happy to send you. I don't, sitting here today, I don't think any of us can speak in detail of what, if any, concrete mattresses Vineyard Wind put right off of Coble's Beach. It sounds like from what Suzanne's saying that they did put some right off of Dowses, off of Coble's Beach. We'll find out the details on that. And so.
And then the likelihood that you guys would, what that survey has shown so far.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and we have that.
People can put that to rest, that it's not gonna be, you're not gonna be hanging your anchor out there.
Yeah.
On a concrete.
Oh, absolutely. And we have that in our draft environmental impact report. That seafloor bottom map is in there.
And the other question I had, which was from quite a bit ago, was the Gauss thing, right?
Mhm.
So what I would like you to do is give a comparison if you have it, and if you don't, it would be appropriate for a group like this who don't really know Gauss from east. And, so you were saying the level was at 50 something?
About 85 to 100 milligauss, which is
Okay.
irrelevant.
And the federal guideline or the international guideline is 2000?
2000. Yeah.
So if I'm walking down the street and I've got 13,000 volt power lines from Eversource over my head, what's the gap?
A lot higher because there's nothing
So-
shielding it. It just
Well, I
sheds off. the
understand that,
line.
but these folks would like to have a little comparison, I would think, I certainly would. But we don't know what a gallon is.
Yeah,
I
I'd be
mean,
happy.
so if you're at 50 or whatever you are.
Yeah.
Is Eversource at 500?
I'll ask. we could tell you we could look
Or
and
do
see if
they
we have
a meter with them?
studies.
Well,
Yeah, happy to tell you. We
I
could,
mean, they are 13,000 volts right over your head. And that's one thing that I would like to see
Mhm.
with this infrastructure improvement,
Mhm.
quote unquote, is get rid of the toothpicks that are gonna go down and anything over a category 3 hurricane. And we dealt with it at Hurricane Bob, and it took the whole village out for most of a week. And they've just been up there with their hackmaster closing the roads for tree trimming. And they think that it's no good to put power lines under but we've had 2 opportunities in Osterville. When they put the sewers in to mitigate the rainwater runoff 20-something years ago, they had the streets ripped up all over the village to do this rainwater runoff mitigation. And they they didn't have to put the cables in, they didn't have to switch all the infrastructure over, but they could have put the same kind of ductwork in, so that over time, when all the transformers go down and all the lines go down, they can start hauling wires underground. That's used to be cheap, conduit used to be cheap.
Yep.
And it's another infrastructure thing, but get it in the ground and eliminate all this overhead stuff.
Mhm.
So that we actually have more resilient grid ourselves, and
Yep.
that should be part of the plan. Because then you get really visible improvement in the village.
I know that would be great, not only here in Osterville, but across the Cape. Obviously complex, because it's not only the Eversource lines up there, you got Verizon phone lines and Comcast Xfinity lines and.
It's just a few more
Yeah,
conduits.
but
And you can. plan
certainly
for
if
40,
they-
50 years, just like everything else should be planned
Yeah.
for. And all we know right now with Eversource is their plan to have their crews out there at our ratepayers' expense,
Mhm.
making fixed profits on delivering our power, which costs half of what the energy costs. I mean, double.
Yeah.
Over again. And so if we can see that kind of improvement with working with the utility, it changes the picture.
Understood. Well, hopefully Eversource will consider piggybacking and working with us on our construction. That would be
Well, and
nice.
I think we should start demanding it,
Yeah, we should.
because there's no reason to leave the wires overhead like they did all around, the Cobles project. It's ridiculous, it's ugly, and it's so vulnerable, and that's what really changes for people, is you create better resiliency.
Yeah.
And it's a nicer looking village.
Good. Other questions?
Can I follow up on that question? Thanks again for the one in regards to matching. And also I follow like going friend from here. And basically the matching that went down is off of Spindle Rock. So that's further offshore. It's just an area where it's just a rocky water.
Yeah.
But that was the end of the campaign for the HDD coming from onshore. So it was buried from Cobbles all the way underneath up to where it penetrated out through at Spindle Rock. And then it was then buried furthermore back out to the east.
Thank you.
Good. I got maybe another question in the room, and then we've got a couple folks on Zoom. Councilor Cusack?
Yeah, thanks, Pat. Paul Cusack, town councilor here, Precinct 5. I'm a strong proponent of trying to find partnerships for this village to clean it up in regards to what I think is pretty much our existential threat, which is a big water related issue, which is when you hear about the nitrogen and phosphorus loading that we all do through our septic systems. And so looking for partners, this potential offshore wind company could potentially be a great partner. I think everybody should know, right, that they're still in a bidding process, so other players could also end up being the winner here. But that seems to be a group that is willing to have a conversation with us about trying to lower the cost and speed up the time that we can get sewer here in this village. And that means a lot to me, and I think it means a lot to you and your homes and your families and your home's resale value. Sir, up there, yes, we're very committed to doing the CWMP as the town council, I believe, and we're looking to try to have an opportunity to move that up upwards of 10 or 12 years. That's substantial. That's a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus that doesn't make it into the 3-day system in particular. And if this turns out to be the partner group, that's fantastic. I do have one sort of question that I feel like we were focused on HDD, the horizontal drilling, and then Suzanne did ask a question about the causeway and HDD. Because if there was a period of time, we all know the causeway is extraordinarily fragile part of the entire operation out there, right? And if you're serious about, I think, actually protecting South Beach, one of the things you have to be serious about is like dune restoration, dune protection. That is a very thin causeway that is now no longer really dune oriented. It's just sort of a very tight pathway that we all pull over to let another car pass or a biker. So I would be interested, dune restoration is definitely something that the town would also like to partner with a potential offshore wind partner on this. But I'd also, if you could say something in regards to, I think you were looking at the possibility of running a parallel HDD to the actual causeway. I know that had been in some past filings. If you could just give an update on that, I think everyone would benefit. Thank you.
Got it. So I think Kevin Fitzgerald, you want to talk about culvert crossing? I think we have some extra slides here. Okay, yep. From the current slide. Can that work? Yeah. There you go. Okay.
Yeah. So,
Sorry, Pat, can you please share the screen for Zoom?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, sorry, I didn't do that, Steve. You're right. Hold on one second. Do this thing at a time. Got this here. Share. From current slide. All right, does that look okay, Steve? Are you getting the full view or the smaller view?
We're getting the smaller view here.
I'm gonna do the flip. How's that look now?
Better, thank you.
Oh, but we didn't, oh, hold on, I gotta do the other thing, hold on. Hold on, one more time, okay? We're gonna do display settings, duplicate, okay. That should work now. Okay.
you all set, Steve?
Yes, thanks.
Great. So this is a plan view, top view of the culvert itself. So just to get you oriented, the beach parking lot is down this way. And this gray area, that is the underground duct bank. We had talked about merging the 3 circuits that land individually, then they come together. That's the image at the far right-hand side. And similar to the methodology of the work in the parking lot, all the work that's done in the roadway stays in the roadway. We're not planning to infringe on any environmentally sensitive areas. So how do we get over the culvert? This is a plan view of what it looks like, but if you can take me to the next slide, we're basically bridging over it.
All right.
What you see here is an existing box culvert that's owned and maintained and maybe someday might get replaced by the town. We're not changing that at all. So the configuration that we have calls for adding in some piles, a pile cap, and then we're basically gonna bridge right over that culvert with actually not even contacting it. We put down a layer of cell foam between our bridging structure and the town's culvert. This way the town will be able to maintain and or replace that culvert in the future. If this view here is swimming in Finney's Bay looking toward East Bay. So that's what it looks like from that side. And you can see how we have this bridging structure that goes straight across. Looking at it the other way, looking at it as though you were in the Causeway Road itself, this is what it looks like. And what you're seeing here, we have 9 active conduit and 3 spare. Okay, so that's our 3 circuits, 3 cables per circuit. So we're coming up the causeway, we're in a configuration where they're 3 wide and 4 tall. We can't keep that because we have the culvert that we need to get over. So what we do is we transition from that 3x4 configuration to a 1x12 configuration. Okay, and so that's what the side view looks like. And so we have our active conduit that are in the middle. We have spare conduit at the end. If you're familiar with the duct bank drawings, and I expect you are, we have communication cable that go along. Pat had mentioned the SCADA system that 24/7 monitor. They're put in conduit in these structural members. These are hollow core beams effectively. We actually have a spare conduit at the very end that we're going to actually reserve for the town if they ever want to route a water pipe or if they want to route cable. That's up for grabs. We're looking forward to meetings with the town coming up to go over this with them. So that's how we get over the culvert. And if you can go to the next slide, it's a little hard to see, but this is what the transition looks like. We come out, again, this is an elevation view and a plan view. We're 4 tall, 3 wide as we leave the beach parking lot and head toward the causeway. And this rendering shows how we transition from the 3x4 to the 1x12 configuration. So you mentioned a tunnel as an alternate. There is an alternate design in the DEIR. This is preferred by AVANGRID, but we did come up with an alternate scheme. It's actually not using a HDD, it's actually using a technology called a micro tunnel that would actually micro tunnel from the area where at the opening of the parking lot, and it would go clear over to that East Bay Park, the park where the causeway meets East Bay Road. It's an alternative. It was put there because it was asked for, but this is the preferred option by AVANGRID.
And you wanted to say some of this is new, the design is updated in the draft environmental impact report we filed with MEPA. Updated from what we filed previously. So some of what Ken presented that's in the DER is a little different, newer, updated for those who follow this closely.
And we're looking forward to discussions with the town. We really haven't had a chance to sit down engineer to engineer and go over these details.
So Ken, you have 2 micro tunnel plans in the DEIR. I've read every page. And one of the micro tunnels under East Bay comes up on East Bay Road and would walk off Dowson's Beach for 8 months. The other micro tunnel project would sort of go alongside the causeway, and then that little picnic area at the beginning would pretty much be wiped out. Is that accurate?
No, ma'am. There's only one micro tunnel. Is there a larger image? Go back to one of the beach images.
There you go.
But you talked about a micro tunnel under East Bay, coming up on East Bay Road.
Yeah, I mean, no, not East Bay Road. Let me get a picture in front of us, please.
Let's see, which one would you like to see? Post-construction or mid-construction or
How about the one of the duck bank route? Maybe we could zoom in on that,
duck bank?
because I want
That's on the internet that I showed?
Yeah, the map.
This one. This
to,
here?
that's good, right here.
Okay, hold on, I gotta share screen for Zoom for 1 second. Back to Zoom.
Ken, I'll send you some screenshots of the wording in the DEIR.
Please,
Yeah,
please, I sent him a pad, he'll get them to me.
yeah, okay.
All right, Steve, is this coming in for you folks on Zoom?
All good, thanks.
Okay,
Okay, that's okay.
so we know where we are. There's our causeway. We just talked about the culvert crossing, as we affectionately call it. So the micro tunnel that I described would actually the work would be done from the Dowses Beach parking lot. Same criteria, all from paved surfaces, no work on the beach, no work from the dunes. So basically, there'd be what's called a jacking shaft that would be dug into the parking lot.
I'm
Thanks.
just gonna zoom in a little bit here.
Okay, getting dizzy. Okay. The receiving shaft would be placed in the park, not actually on the road.
No, I understand
Yeah,
that.
and the tunnel is about 467 feet long, and it would go parallel to Dowses Beach. Dowses Beach Road here. We exercised a lot of caution. We tried to be as least impactful as we could. We also understand, and we've seen it, that there's a beech tree that's located right in that park, and we've been able to avoid it. We actually put the construction fence beyond the branch limits of that tree and plan to work around it if it came to that. But again, this is an alternate arrangement. Okay,
So the micro tunnel under East Bay, landing on East Bay Road is,
landing actually in the park, what's now the park.
right. Okay, I'll take screenshots and send it to Patrick, because I'm pretty sure in the DEIR, you talk both of those possibilities. And you have all along, you talked in ENF as well as the DEIR about micro tunneling under East Bay, coming up on East Bay Road and blocking off Dowses for 8 months. That's new in the DEIR.
It is, that's micro tunneling is a process, and it would take a majority of that construction season. It would take a majority of the construction season, but please send anything, Suzanne, be happy to reply.
Well, maybe just Suzanne's question. So in terms of these scenarios, so if we do the Causeway Road, we don't do the micro tunnel, we do the construction that Ken described first within the Causeway Road. We're probably talking about, when we're doing a trench there, we're probably talking about full closure to Dowses Beach, 6 weeks,
8
so
weeks.
8 weeks, 6
You
to
said
8, yeah.
8 weeks in the DEIR.
6 to 8 weeks. So if we do that option, there would be a period during one of the 3 construction seasons, one winter month where there'd be a 6 to 8 week, it sounds like 8 weeks from what Suzanne, you have 2 months where we would not have, there would not be any access to Dowses Beach during 2 months of one of the winters, probably somewhere in the 26 to 28 range of future years, where when doing the work in that roadway, or in the Causeway Road, there would be no access to Dowses Beach. But Ken, if we did the micro tunnel and landed where that shell turnaround is and that cedar tree closer to the roadway, try to avoid the big shade tree, beech tree that provides shade over the picnic tables, there would be some type of closure of access to Dowses Beach when we were working in that small park shell turnaround area, right?
For sure, the critical part is this area here. All the construction, the majority of the construction work will be here. The staging, the laydown, and the drilling operation will be derived from here. There will be construction work on this side, but it's not quite as substantial. So it is the better part of the majority of the construction season to install it.
So I want to send me what you have, Suzanne, and I want to talk with Ken and others and get a clear, I don't know if we've done a complete model of the closure scenarios, and maybe it is in the DEIR, we need to find it, of how much there'd be a potential full closure of access to the Dowses Beach parking lot if we did the micro tunnel.
Yeah, I'm sorry, while the construction's going on, that's a choke. There's nothing we want to do, nothing we should do nor want to do to allow the public to get near such a major project. You wouldn't want to have people milling around, mainly because it will take up that whole area in front of the boathouse.
I just want people to be clear that there's a chance there won't be full access, as you say.
Right.
But,
And I may say, that's why the culvert crossing is preferred as over the micro tunnel.
one last question, how deep will you ditch the causeway, Ken? How
The,
deep
um,
down? So if you go the causeway,
Right.
how deep will you dig the causeway up?
The bottom of the duck bank will be 8 feet below grade. It'll be 3.5 foot of cover, 4.5 feet, duct bank height, bottom is 8 feet.
So we showed the other night at the OBA meeting, we showed many pictures of the causeway being completely flooded over.
Right.
And my question about your plan for the causeway is, should such an event occur, a storm, a winter storm, coinciding with a high tide, and that causeway be completely flooded and the causeway is open because of your work, would you worry at all about washout?
During construction,
Yeah.
we would, that's a key point that we're looking at on Park City Wind now. We would make provisions to minimize those impacts. One of the things we've been keenly aware of, particularly on Park City and on Commonwealth, is the impact on major storms, not just after everything is installed, but during construction. So those are the type of details that as we start talking with contractors and getting them lined up, we want them keenly focused on that. You know, for example, if a major storm is coming in, we're gonna clear the deck of all hydrocarbons, fuel oil, generators, things of that nature, just get them out of the way. Just so that if there was any degree of flooding, specifically if it was substantial, just make sure that those hydrocarbons wouldn't be released and end up in place. Same thing with any chemicals.
I think that's very wise, but I guess I'm asking about what if the causeway happens to be open during construction when it experiences one of these floods that happen 2 to 3 times a year, where the water from Finney Bay just simply flows like a current over that causeway into East Bay? That's my question, Ken.
Yeah, well, we work incrementally. We don't dig up everything all at once from one side of the Dowses Beach Road to the other. We in the roadway, we have an installation rate of duct bank of somewhere between 80 and 200 feet per day. It's probably going to be a little bit less than that when we're doing the work at Dowses, just because it's a little bit more constrained. So I think the key, Suzanne, is keeping an eye on the weather, which construction people do. And in the event that there were storms predicted that appeared to be severe, that would cause those types of events, we would stop construction and backfill the hole effectively. In other words, we wouldn't go to the next step until the risk of weather was passed. So the key is we don't make one giant excavation, we install incremental.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
Ken, about 80 feet open at a time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Good. So I think Ellen Nozel, I saw a hand raised, and then Steve, I don't know if there's anybody else. And Bebe Brock, if you wanted to talk, please just put something in the chat. But I'm gonna go to Ellen and bring Ellen on. See if you have a question or comment, Ellen, and then Steve, maybe if you have any other Zoom comments. And we're getting close to 7, so I'm gonna wrap this up here soon, because we need to be out of here by 7. Ellen, go ahead. Ellen, it looks like you're unmuted. I can't hear you though.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we got you now. Go ahead.
Right. It looks like the counselor from Osterville did mention in his comments that AVANGRID may be the one that wins this project, and people in the room need to know that the original contract for the power purchase agreement was canceled, and AVANGRID has paid millions of dollars to the public utilities in order to cancel that contract, and now is interested in rebidding for it. So people need to understand the extent to which the deal is not done. Another thing is an observation that I made recently. Silly local girl and should know better than to try to go to the beach on a Sunday in August, but Dowses Beach was full, and Craigville Beach was intermittently full. So at any time, anybody's car is parked over these splicing station vaults, which are the most exposed you could be to a possible tragic event, because they historically, if you're going to have a failure of electricity, an explosion, those are the places that it's going to happen. So all I could think of was those people sitting there in the summer in the hot weather waiting for that to happen. The other thing that I wanted to make clear is on that access road of the causeway. I have a hard time picturing this 12 rows of power cables there horizontally having that causeway even be adequate enough to handle that from a width point of view? How does that work?
Thanks for your comments, Ellen. Would you like to talk about that, Ken, the width of the causeway, why it's, how it works or how it fits?
Yes, certainly. We've developed a conceptual design that takes into account the current width of that roadway, the current bridging over the culvert, and in consideration of the design of the new infrastructure, which includes those hollow core beams. And as we saw on an earlier image, that there is sufficient space to put them side by side, like we had showed on that earlier image. So we've confirmed that through our feasibility review and our conceptual design. So we think it's a sound design. We again are bridging over the town culvert and believe it should work well.
Thank you so much. Ellen, any other questions or comments?
No, just a general comment to anyone who's in the room or on Zoom that, you know, a big deciding factor in all of this is your town government. So it's your job as a citizen, if you have any questions, comments, inquiries, input, to be in touch with your town government, whether that's your precinct counselor or attending a town council meeting, and make sure that your questions are answered. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ellen. Thanks for your comments and questions. I just go to any, Steve, I see 3 in the Q&A. Any questions you want to read or any other raised hands? Go for it.
Yeah, there's 2. There's going to be a clarifying question for Janet Smith on the maintenance that is required for the cables. We talked about earlier the maintenance for the route, but she's really curious what happens for the maintenance for the cables in the HTD under the beach.
It's my understanding, and I will confirm this with our O&M team, that it's the same projection in our full own operations and maintenance plans. I don't believe are finalized yet, but that there'd be an expectation of an annual check of the joint bays in the Dowses Beach parking lot, obviously during the winter months when the beach parking lot is not full, and a visual inspection, and the same for the various vaults along the route every half mile. That's my understanding of expected planned maintenance activity. But if anybody has any other comments on that or from the team, that's my understanding. Sure, sir.
Well, I just wanted to go back to one of the scenarios you talked about. And when you were describing the maintenance and interception of problems in the entire installation. And I think the Zoom caller might have alluded to some weird failure that would occur in the middle of August when the parking lot is packed.
Sure.
You know, but you described a situation and, you know, I want you to sort of clarify what would happen in an intervention part of that. The system would shut down entirely while there was some checks being done on the system. And some of those checks would not require opening any manhole covers at all, I think, because of your SCADA system.
Sure.
And then you could implement, I believe, a restart of the whole infrastructure with the problem area left out of the system because you have redundancy.
No, but well, if there was an issue with a specific vault, let's say one of the 3 vaults in the Dowses Beach parking lot, I could see a scenario where potentially the other 2 vaults remained in operation, but the one that was having some kind of an issue that needed to have a visual inspection might be down. I'd be speculating.
So you might do that visual inspection in the middle of the night in August evening or something like that, where the beach is not being used.
I would imagine that would be the conversation between our team and ComFire, and the town police department, rec department. I imagine it'd be, all right, why don't you schedule this for after 10 p.m. We'll leave the gate open. You're gonna come check this, leave it down once the beachgoers have left for the day. That sounds plausible, but I would just say, I'm speculating on that.
Right, but I mean, your operation would allow the rest of the infrastructure to be brought back up. You're not shutting down the whole offshore wind turbine because you have one of your 3 cables down. You might be limiting total power output out there.
Yeah.
but visually and operationally, you're not gonna, we'll clear out the parking lot, we gotta check this vault in the middle of August, right? I mean, that's the scenario people are bringing up in their minds.
Yeah, that all sounds right to me. It would depend on the scenario, it would depend on what type of issue, and if there was concern by our team that's monitoring that, they might decide to shut everything down until a visual inspection could be done by those folks who are doing that maintenance work to figure out what's going on. That would be up to the experts who know and have all sorts of really detailed scenario plans that they'll make all those decisions off of in the future.
Right, but you do have enough redundancy in the infrastructure that you could take a partial shutdown,
Yeah.
maintain most of your operation
Yes.
and not disrupt the way
Yes.
the stuff.
Particularly in the summer months, that's when we'll have usually our lowest output, because the wind's not as high in the summer. We'll have the highest, getting towards 100% output, mainly during the winter months when the
Right.
wind is whipping. And that's when we'll be reaching
And
our maximum.
everyone's using the frac natural gas and killing the environment.
Yeah, well, hopefully more
You're
people
gonna offset
electrify
that.
and,
You're gonna offset that.
yeah, hopefully more
I'm
folks are gonna
looking forward
electrify.
to that.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
looking forward to that.
Good.
But,
Yeah.
what I wanted to clarify is that people aren't gonna be popping covers off, Osterville, West Barnstable Road in the middle of August when you can't get through there anyway.
No.
With traffic, because you're trying to check your grid.
Common sense would be BPD and Tom Fire and the town would say, please do that at night. I agree with you.
Put it in the reality here.
Yeah.
You're dealing with public, people that just conjure things up in their mind, and it's the worst case scenario.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So Steve, your second comment you had there?
Yep, last one here from Matt Keefe. After installation of the cables, will there be any boat or vessel navigation restrictions in the area where the cables are located offshore?
Mr. Fisheries Liaison?
Yes, thanks for that question. No, there will not be. There will not be any restrictions. I mean, we do not want people to align with the actual turbines and the monopiles, but there will be no restrictions around there. We actually are excited about it from a fisheries standpoint because it will be a fisheries aggregate device and kind of promote ecosystems and congregations of fishes. We've seen in the 7-year study that came out of Block Island more recently.
All right, 6:53, we're supposed to be out of here at 7. Any last comment in the room? Otherwise, I think we'll call it a night here. Okay, thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks, everyone on Zoom. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, so stop the recording. I'll go to you first on that, Steve.